So can everybody see my presentation? Just drop in a thumbs up or yes in the chat box so I know we are all set and there are no technical difficulties here. Okay, perfect. So yes, I'm Akshita and we will be going through, all about UI UX design field today. So as a UI UX designer, I get this question asked a lot. UI UX design field is relatively newer as compared to, maybe interior design, fashion design, graphic design. So a lot of people ask me that is this field even relevant? Like, do people consider this as a proper field? Are people ready to pay for it? And do brands really need a UI UX designer? So let me share a small fact with you. So in August 2020, that is like a few months back from now, there were 111,000 apps that were released on the Google Play Store. So 111,000 apps just in a month. So that's a huge number, right? And there are millions of mobile apps on the App Store today. Now, some have been successful while others have not. But one thing has been, common with all the successful mobile apps, and that is they all have a great user interface and provide a great user experience as well. Now, because of the pandemic, a lot of businesses want an online presence. Do you guys agree with me on this? Are people looking for, online presence? They're looking for a website, and there are so many startups coming up every day, right? So, and because of all of this, there is a huge demand for a UI UX designer who is basically responsible for designing the layout of the websites and the application. So yes, this is why UI UX designer is important and people are considering it, a proper field and people do want a UI UX designer. So these are the things we will be going over today. So first we'll have an introduction to what is a UI UX designer, like what is the field all about. Then we learn how you can start as a UI UX designer. Then we will also go over the creative design process that is there. And then we'll understand what is a good UI UX, how you can differentiate. Then we'll also learn what it takes to become a designer, how you guys can become a designer. So are you guys ready for it? Drop in a thumbs up in the chat box or a yes in the chat box. Just let me know if you're excited and ready, and then we'll start. Awesome, awesome, perfect. Keep your energies high. Let's have an interactive session. I don't want it to be a one-way thing. Let's just talk and learn from each other today. Awesome. So now let's start with what is basically UI UX. So UX applies to anything that can be experienced. Now UX stands for user experience and UI stands for user interface. So yes, as I said, UX can be applied to anything that can be experienced. Now, be it a website or a coffee machine or even a visit to the supermarket. The user experience part refers to the interaction between the user and the product. The main purpose of UX designer is to create easy, relevant, efficient, and an all-round pleasant experience for the user. So they basically plan how an app or a website will function and what all steps it will have for the user. On the other hand, a UI designer considers, the look, the feel, and the interactivity of the product. So a UI designer will think about, maybe icons, buttons, typography, color schemes, spacing, and what kind of images that will go on the app of it. So this is the basic difference between UI and UX. Now, one word that aptly describes both UI as well as UX is interdependency. So there is a common misconception among most that UI is a separate entity from UX. But the truth is that both the elements of UX as well as UI design must go hand in hand in order to create a great product. So UI UX are basically two parts of the same brain. So as it is written here, UX without UI is like the frame of a sculpture with no paper mache on it. So there's a proper sculpture, there's a structure there, but nothing for the user or you guys to see. While UI without UX is like a painter just slapping paint onto a canvas without any proper thought. So there is something for you to see, but there's no thought process behind it. It's just there. So did you guys understand the basic difference between what a UI and a UX designer does? Let me know in the chat box. Okay, perfect, Jibin. Great, great, Surya. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay, Chirag says no. So Chirag, can you let me know what doubts or questions you have so that we can clear it side by side? Okay, no problem. Great. Okay. So now the next thing is what it takes to become a designer. Okay, how UI and UX are interdependent. Okay. So Chirag, UX is basically the research part of it, like how an app should look, and the UI designer will bring in the knowledge that why it should be like that. So UX designers, we will go over, the proper design process that both of these follow. So maybe this will be more clear at that time. But on the top of it, UX designer does the research work and UI designer defines how the app or the website would look. Both of them work together. So it is backed by the research and the aesthetic presence. I hope I made myself clear and you have a better understanding now. Okay. So now how to start as a UI UX designer. So there are a couple of ways you can actually, start as a UI UX designer. And the first point is to go to a design school. That's the first and the basic step which you can follow. It's the easiest one. You can either do, your bachelor's in science or you can do a proper bachelor's in design. BSc in design is basically a 3-year degree and BDES is a 4-year degree. So these are both at graduation level. If you want, you can also go for master's. Now, this as I say this as the easiest way to step into the design world is because you get into the design school, and then from there, through placements or because of the knowledge you get from your professors and your peers, you get a step into the design world, which is the easiest way. Although this takes a lot of time, since it takes about 4 years for graduation and 2 years for masters, and it is expensive relatively to other options. The second step that you can do is, if you don't want to go, the longer route, what you can do is you can take up an online UI UX course. So basically start with, an introduction design course and then progress into a UI UX design certification course, which is focused more on career preparedness. So this will help you master applied skills such as research, information architecture, wireframing, prototyping, and visual communication. So pick a course that allows you to build a portfolio as well, which you will have to show to your potential employers in order to get a job or an internship. And this way, this online course also provides you access to an industry professional who can answer questions about the realities of UI UX field, the job opportunities, and clear your doubts as well. So this is the second step that you can do, which is take an online course. There are a lot of websites, platforms that you can take this from. Some I can name are Udemy, there's Skillshare, there's Coursera, which really have, some of them have amazing courses, which are about, 4 months, 6 months long, which you can easily do at home as well. The third step is you teach yourself. So now there's a lot of design information available for free on the internet as well. You can go on YouTube, look for UI, US courses, look for specific topics, and you will get everything easily available. But this takes time. And I think the major disadvantage of this is that you are learning in isolation. So you're just sitting by yourself and learning in front of a computer or maybe reading books. So you don't get access to other people's brain. You can't get your doubts cleared in a proper way. You'll have to do a lot of research for it. So this is basically learning in isolation, which might not be the best way for you. So yeah, these are 3 ways you can actually start with UI UX design. The second is familiarize yourself with the UI principles. Now, there are a couple of principles that you can familiarize yourself with, learn about them, which you will basically use in your design journey when you're actually designing products and apps and websites. So before practicing design, the first thing you need to do is learn some design principles. From this, you will basically be able to enter the design world and start thinking creatively. So you will learn the psychological aspects of design, as in, why something looks good or why something fails. So these are some basic design principles you should know about. So color is the most basic one. So now color has a proper color psychology behind it, which you should learn and you should study. So color psychology basically tells you why you use certain colors at certain places. Now, for example, why Zomato uses red and why Swiggy uses orange, while maybe healthcare brands such as, Oral-B uses blue. So they just don't randomly use this. There's a proper psychology behind it, that how a user will feel by looking at your product. So what you want to reinforce into the user's brain. So this is done by color psychology. The second is balance. Now balance is all about, symmetry and asymmetry. So for example, you're designing a website and in the nav bar, you're putting some menus. Now, what size of button you should put there so that it all looks balanced out. So these are certain decisions you need to take as a designer. Third is contrast. Contrast is all about building a visual hierarchy. So by visual hierarchy, I mean what is more important, what you want the user's attention to be grabbed by, and what is the order of things that is there. Now, for example, the size of a button cannot be as huge as the size of the main heading, right? Do you guys agree with me on this? The button cannot be as big as, a main heading. There's a proper sizing that needs to go there in order to create that visual hierarchy. Awesome, great, Salvini. The fourth point is typography. Now, typography is a very, very important aspect of design. So choosing fonts and creating readable text on the web is very important. Just as colors, typography also has a psychology behind it. So you use different kinds of fonts for a luxury brand as compared to an education brand, right? So these are 4 basic design principles that you should know about. Next is develop your eye for design. Now, knowing design principles is great, but sometimes it's not enough. So you also have to train your eyes to see good design and to identify strengths and weaknesses in the design. So the most effective way to train your eye for design is through inspiration. So look at what other designers are doing. So there are sites like, Dribble, Behance. Go on them, look at what other people are doing. You'll get access to the work of people throughout the world, not just in your city or in your area. You will see work from all over the world. And whenever you come across, pretty design or something relevant to what you want to do in your next project, save it in your notes and mention what you like about it. You can also take screenshots if you want. So this way you'll have a collection of inspiration designs. And next time you're designing something, you can just go over them. And this way you can also create your own design language because, you understand what you like as a designer, what you feel looks good, and then you can see what other people are doing as well. So this way you can create your own book for inspiration. Now, next is the creative design process. So Chirag, we will be going over, each process here. So I hope the question that you asked will get more clear here. So yes, now both the designers work together, but their skills are required at different times of the project. So as I said, UX designer is more concerned with the research part of it, while UI designer is more concerned with the design part of the project. So we'll go over in detail for both of these. So let's start with UX designer's work first. So the first very important thing is conducting user research. So user research is mainly done to understand who your user is and what are their likes and dislikes, who they actually are. You can do this in a couple of ways. You can conduct, interviews, you can do surveys, you can send up questionnaires to people, or you can directly go and talk to them as well. So for example, if you're designing an app for, maybe school children who are from the age of 4 to 8, something like that, you can talk to kids in your park or, near your house. Just talk to them. That way you're conducting a user research. You're basically understanding your users. So it is very important to do that because at the end of the day, they are the one who are going to use your product. You're not designing for yourself or your client. They are your end user. So understand them, talk to them, understand what they actually need, and then design your app accordingly. Next point is persona. So first you conduct the research. Now, for example, you conduct a research for about 50 to 100 people. Let's take that as a bracket. You talk to so many people and you understand all of their needs. Now, persona is basically a hypothetical biodata that you create for your target audience. So you will create a persona for about 2 to 3 people at max, okay? And those 3 biodatas will have characteristics of all those 100 people that you have talked to. That is why I said it's hypothetical, because it will have a lot of characteristics. Now, persona basically has things like, your likes, your daily routine, your pain points, your frustrations, what kind of a person you are. So basically that. So a page long persona is enough. And the purpose for that is so that it will help you stay on track with your users. So when you're designing, you don't have to look at those 100 people again and again. You have these 3 people on your table, and you know that, okay, I need to design for these 3 people. Am I making sense, right? Just let me know if you have any questions. I will give more examples and make it as clear as possible. So let me know if you have any questions. If it is clear till now, just drop in a thumbs up or drop in a yes in the chat box so I know, and then I can move forward. Okay, perfect. Great. Awesome, Vaibhav. Great. So when you have your user persona in hand, you know who your target audience is, you create a user journey map. Now, user journey map is basically pointing out and listing out a map of the steps that your user has to take to complete certain actions. Now, let me give you an example here. For example, I'm a user and I want to buy a pair of headphones. So what is the whole journey that I will take to buy that pair of headphones? So the first step that I'll do is I'll open my phone and open Amazon again, since I use Amazon a lot. So I'll open Amazon. Then in the search bar, I'll type in headphones. Then a list will appear in front of me. I'll go over 5, 6 of them, see whichever suits my requirements the most, and then I'll add it to cart. After I have added it to cart, I will go in the cart and pay for it. Then after a few days, I will receive my headphones at my place. So this whole journey that I took from the point I clicked, I opened the app, till the point I received my headphones is my user journey. So now the UX designer's work is to make this journey as smooth and easy for me as possible. So this will help the designer, the UX designer, understand that where the user is interacting with the app and what are steps he's taking, and then make it smooth and easy for the user. Don't add, steps that are redundant. Then the next step is wireframing. Now, wireframing is basically creating a layout of your app on, you do wireframing on either paper or whiteboard. That's low fidelity wireframe. You don't do it directly on the software. Those are high fidelity wireframes. So I'll discuss that in the next part. So don't worry about the jargons here. So yes, wireframing is basically creating a structure of how your app or website is going to look. If you have buttons, where the buttons are going to place. If you have some text, how you're going to place it. You don't actually write the text. If you have an image, just put a placeholder for it that, okay, this is the area the image is going to come. What image that is? That is a second step. The first step is wireframing. So you're basically ideating what all different ways your app can look like. Okay. Now that was about UX designer, their journey, their design process. The second is UI designer's process. So this is what a UI designer does. So now, as I said, there are 2 types of wireframes, low fidelity and high fidelity. Low fidelity wireframes are basically wireframes which are drawn on paper or, on whiteboard to just ideate. So you draw a bunch of low fidelity wireframes. So about, say 10 to 20 ideas, you list them down on the paper. You draw those wireframes on the paper. Now from them, you select top 2, probably, not more than that, that these are the 2 wireframes I feel are the best for my product. So this is how my app should look like. You take them and then draw those 2 only on the software. That is also if required. So if you have a client who says, I want to see the wireframes first, and then we'll move on to the final design. So you take those 2 ideas, draw it into on the software, and then show it to your client, get their approval, show it to your user, get their approval, and then start designing. This saves a lot of time because when you're actually designing screens and putting up images, text, colors, everything, and then there's a design change, that's like wasting all that time. It's not value of time there. So that is why wireframes are made, to make the process easy and simpler for both the designer, user, and the client. The third step is, after you have your structure in place, you know how the app or website is going to look, then you create a style guide. So style guide is basically, deciding what kind of colors you're going to use, what kind of fonts, the font size, different kinds of buttons, how the buttons are going to look. Will they have, rounded edges, or will they have pointy edges? If they'll have a shadow or not, what kind of text fields you're going to do. So you take all these decisions upfront before actually designing. So you create a style guide. It's basically a document where you will record all of this. Okay, if I have a text field, this is what the font size is going to be. This is how it will look. This is the size of the field, and you take these decisions like that. Once you have your style guide in place, then you actually design your screen. So, okay, so when you have your decisions, all these decisions in hand, you know what kind of designs I want for different elements, then you actually design. Any software you want to suggest us for digital wireframing? Okay, Himanshu, so there are specific softwares for digital wireframing as well, but I would recommend stick to one software itself. So if you're using, for example, Adobe XD or Figma or Sketch, these three are the major softwares that industry uses. If you decide that, okay, I want to design on Adobe XD, do your wireframes there itself. It will be much easier because you're not using wireframes for, the end product. So it's just like an additional step. Do it on the same software. It will be much easier for you to document as well and much faster as well. Don't go on, using different kind of software for the for wireframing if you want. So yeah, so then you actually design your actual screen. You add your images, you add your actual text and all the colors and everything there. Then you prototype. So prototyping is basically adding some life to your design. So you have your designs in place. Now, when you click on a certain button, what is the next screen that is going to come up and how will it come up? For example, you click on the sign up button on the first page, on the first screen, which is the next screen that is going to come up and how will it come? Will it just pop up? Will it, slide from the left? Will it slide from the bottom? How it is going to come? These are the decisions that a UI designer will take, and prototyping will help you do that. So all these softwares that I just mentioned, Adobe XD, Figma, and Sketch, they have proper prototyping tools as well. So you don't have to go on other softwares for that. Okay, we have a question. Can a person do both graphic design and UI UX design, or is it necessary for us to know graphic design for UI UX design? A person can do both. Okay, so let me tell you this. There is a broader field that's called communication design. Graphic design and UI UX are part of communication design. Graphic design is basically designing logos, magazine covers, social media creatives, banners, posters, stuff like that. UI UX is majorly designing apps and websites, the layouts for them. Now, one person can do both of these. So if you're working for a design agency, you might have to do, work for both of these. But if you're working for a bigger brand, they have a separate graphic design department and a separate UI UX department. I hope I made sense. Okay, Sakshi is asking which software should be used to stand good in designing so as to hold a position for companies to hire you. Sakshi, Adobe XD, Figma are really good. Sketch is also good, but Sketch is only available on Mac. So that is one restraint there. But Adobe XD and Figma are pretty good and people all over the industry use them. So you can learn any of them. What is communication design? So web of communication design is basically, a second term for graphic design, if you can say. So some colleges have courses that have communication design. They teach you logo, photography, video making, poster, banners, stuff like that. And some colleges have graphic designing. Videography and photography are not really part of that, those kind of courses. So the university I did my bachelor's from had communication design, and they used to teach, videography and photography as well. Okay, can you name some good courses for Udemy step by step? Archit, I don't have, the names of the courses on the top of my head right now. But I'm sure if you go on Udemy and search for, UX, UI courses, you will get some of the other courses. If you want, you can contact me after this webinar as well if you want, reference from them. So, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't remember the names on the top of my head. I haven't gone through Udemy recently. There's one UI UX design offered by Claras University on Coursera. Okay, so Himanshu, Archit, you can refer to this. Okay, so the next segment is understanding good UX. So now, okay, I have a question. How to get started? Chirag, how to get started in the UI UX field? Are you asking that? Is it a question from me or is it a general statement? I didn't understand. Can you please elaborate? Okay. In UI UX. Okay, I will let you know in the end. That's the last segment of the workshop. So I will let you know about that then. That what you can do to actually enter the design field. Okay, so now UI UX design field is thriving, as we all understood. And nowadays there are numerous products with similar features, right? That solve the same problem. So to get ahead in the competition, businesses try to create products that users fall in love with. And the only way to do that is to offer a great user experience. Tap into the individual's thoughts and feelings when they're using a specific product or service. And then when that same service is offered with a good UX, customers enjoy their time with your product and they become satisfied with your business. So increased customer satisfaction means it is much easier to attract new customers and convert first-time users into regulars and retain those existing customers, right? So in order to design products that offer great UX, you must understand and see the best and the worst examples of UX UI designs out there. So we will go over a couple of examples that offer good UI and why they have a good UI UX. Okay. Okay, so I have a question. Can you tell some good institutes for post-graduation or short-term courses to pursue UI UX design? So Mrinali, NID is the best. If you can get into NID, that's great. Symbiosis has an interaction design course, which is basically about UI UX. And yeah, so Symbiosis is pretty good. That's one in Pune. NID is great. IIT, yes. So Himanshu says IIT and NID offer good courses. Yes, IIT also offers good courses. So yeah. Okay, so the first example is Google. And I think the biggest reason behind their success is the great UX that Google uses. So I think it's the most simplest and fastest tool that's ever created. It doesn't require any tutorial or any tooltip, right? So tooltip is basically, as the name suggests, it's a tip that appears over the navigation button of the tool. So it explains what the tool can do, right? What certain buttons can do and stuff like that. So all you have to do on Google is just type in what you want to search and then just hit enter. That's it. That's all you have to do. And it's very easy, very clean, very simple, right? Do you guys agree with me? Google has by far the best UI UX out there. Do you guys agree? Let me know in the chat box. Okay, Surya, great, Anaka, awesome. Okay. The next is Duolingo. So now Duolingo is basically a language learning platform where you can learn various foreign languages. So what Duolingo does is it basically, uses elements of gamification. So it uses different kinds of elements which seems like a game to the user. So they have leaderboard, they offer different kinds of badges when you cross a certain milestone. They also have different kinds of avatars. So it feels like you're playing a game while learning. So I think that's a great way of using gamification. A lot of education platforms are incorporating gamification nowadays. So yeah, gamification is a great way when you want to actually engage your user and grab their attention. The next is Mailchimp. Now Mailchimp gives their web application a face. Even though it's not a human face, they have a mascot which is a chimp, which pops up throughout the interface, adding humor, high fives, and an emotional connection with the user. So this humanization of technology adds depth to the otherwise boring experience of managing email marketing. So Mailchimp is all about email marketing, which is basically a very technical thing. It's pretty boring, but adding a humanized touch to it, adding a mascot, it adds that sort of feeling to it, right? So the experience then becomes less like a tool and it feels more like a team member you're working with to get the job done. So yes, I think these three are great examples that touches different kinds of aspects of UX design, which you can actually incorporate in your project. Okay, so Sakshi is asking, does creating an SRS document, DFD, UMI diagrams, etc., come under UI UX design? No, Sakshi, not really. So UI UX design basically has documents like style guide, journey mapping, and maybe card sorting, stuff like that, not technical stuff. Okay, so now we will learn what it takes to actually become a designer, what you can do to actually start your journey. So Chirag, I believe you had that question earlier, that how you can start, how you can get started with UI UX. So this is how you can do that. So right now there are a lot of people who are trying to enter the design field, right? So maybe recent college grads which have a passion for digital world, or graphic designers who are seeking a career change. or maybe creative people with jobs which are unrelated to, design. The good news is that there is extremely high demand right now for UI UX designers. However, if you're trying to land a UX design job, even at entry level with little to no experience, you're going to have a tough time, right? So even companies who are desperate for a UI UX designer are willing to wait to find someone with a track record. You need experience as a UX designer to land your first job as a UX designer. So this is how I can place it. So how do you do that, right? So we'll go over some steps which you can do to become a UI UX designer if you're starting from scratch. So first is read up to make yourself get familiar with design. So the best way is to read, a few articles each day. Make reading design news and blogs an everyday habit. Now there are millions of articles available online for us to read, right? So learning from other people's experiences actually helps you learn better. So start your day maybe, with a cup of coffee and a few inspirational articles on design. So you can read articles on Medium or some sort of magazines. And basically, learning new things in the morning will broaden your mind and make more room for creativity during the day. So it's, I think, a win-win situation here. So you can bookmark the websites that you like on your browser, or maybe subscribe to some design newsletter so that, the mail pops into your mailbox and then you get reminded that you have to read. So there are literally hundreds of books also on design. So some I can name at the top of my head are The Design of Everyday Things. So it's a great book which is written by Don Norman. It's a very easy read, and it will really add to your knowledge bank. The second I think which you should read is Don't Make Me Think. It's again a great book by Steve Krug, and you can get PDF for both of these available easily on Google. They are free, so read them. You'll learn a lot of things from these. Next is Design Fake Projects. Now we all know that practice makes perfect, and we also know that we can't get job or clients without experience, right? But without a job, you can't really practice. But what you can do is you can design fake projects. So pick up a website or an app that you already use and redesign it. It could be anything that you think, can be made better. For example, take WhatsApp. We all use WhatsApp, right? Take WhatsApp, think how you would have designed it, and then add it to your portfolio as well. So yeah, this will be a great exercise to learn and practice, and then it's also adding to your portfolio. Okay, Anand is asking, can you type the name of those books, ma'am? Sure, I'll do that. How do an architect or other design field people enter the field? We are designers but don't have experience. Arpana, take up a small, short-term course on UI UX design or graphic design, whatever you want to see. Architects have it easy because it's again a creative field, so learning process is majorly same. Take up a course, learn the basic, software, the process and everything. Then these are certain things that we're discussing right now that you can do generally. It'll just add to your knowledge bank. So read a book, design fake projects, and then learn the latest design tools. So yes, you can learn them either on your own or take up a short course to learn them, which will help, make the whole process a lot easier. Can you tell some websites where we can get good UI UX designs and frameworks? Chirag, you can refer to Dribble, refer to Behance. There's also, I think, UX Design Web, which has great, UI kits available as well. Yeah, so I was typing the name of the book. Yeah. First is Don't Make Me Think. And the second is The Design of Everyday Things. So yes, I've typed it in the chat box. You can refer to these books. Yeah, so now there are tons of design tools out there, but you don't need to know all of them. So get to know the best ones out there and choose your favorite, and then stay updated with them with, the newest features and trends that keep coming up. So Adobe XD is a great platform. Figma is another great software that you can learn, or there's Sketch. But again, as I said, Sketch is just for Mac. So, the scope is a little shorter there, but yes, Adobe XD and Figma are great, and the best part is they're both free software. So unlike Illustrator and Photoshop, you don't have to purchase these softwares. They're free, so you can use them for free. So yeah, okay. Can you tell some websites? Yeah, we answered that, right? Yeah. Okay. Next is find a mentor. Now, another great way to learn design is to find a design mentor or a designer friend who's willing to help. Now, this will basically help you speed up your learning process. So the designer would, review your work, give you your comments whenever possible. It's basically like a shortcut, right? They would also give you tips and tricks about which they learned from their experience. So what you can do is just go ahead, email a designer, ask your questions, discuss your concerns. One of the greatest assets I believe in the UI UX design field will be finding a mentor. That is someone who you can go to, with questions and concerns, and someone who's a source of knowledge and has worked in the industry. So yeah, find a mentor. It's, I think, the greatest asset that you'll ever have. Okay, so from where shall we get the illustration, vectors, and graphics while designing, or shall we design them on our own? So Sakshi, what happens is if you're working for a brand, they'll have a separate graphic design department who will design these graphics for you. If you're someone who's working on your own project, if you're working as a freelancer maybe, and you want to design illustrations, you can either do them on, Illustrator or on XD as well, on Figma as well. They do have some sort of scope to design graphics there. Or you can go on the internet. There are a lot of free graphics available, and then make the changes according to your needs. Okay, Yatin is asking which is better, Illustrator or XE? XE or XD? Yatin, can you please clear that? XD. Okay, so Yatin, basically XD is a major software for UI UX design specifically. Illustrator is more used by graphic designers. So Illustrator will help you design, characters, maybe some sort of graphics there, banners and posters and stuff like that. So you can't compare XD and Illustrator. If you're designing for an app or a website, you will use XD. If you're designing some logo or some sort of a graphic, then you use Illustrator. So yeah, I hope that made sense, Yatin. Okay, so that was all that I had to say. Now we can open the floor for your questions, your concerns, and then we can address them. So you can drop in your questions in the chat box so that I can, help you with that. Does freelance count as experience? Arpana, yes, freelancing counts as experience, but make sure you take a proper contract from your client so that you can prove it somewhere. Yeah, take a contract with the starting date and the ending date. One question, do we need a bit of coding knowledge to work as a successful UI UX designer in the real field? No, Himanshu, you do not need to know coding. You will not have to code. But if you do know coding, if you are from the coding background, what it will do is it will help you communicate with the developer easily, because you'll understand their sort of technical terms. So it will just help you communicate better, but nothing in the field of design. So you don't need to learn coding for that. Do we have more questions? How is design delivered to the developer, like file format? Okay, so if you're designing on XD or Figma, you can either give the whole file to the developer, you can send the XD file to them, or these softwares also have a plugin for codes. So what you can do is you can design on XD, use that plugin, extract HTML, CSS code from that. So you don't have to write the code. It will just extract it based on your designs and then send that code to the designer, the developer. Go to strategy for building a good portfolio. So Abhishek, portfolio is a very important aspect of a designer when you're actually going to apply for a job or an internship. So portfolio is basically like, a proof of your skills. So the three major things that a portfolio should have is basically 3 to 4 great projects, your best projects. Second is your portfolio should tell a story. So there should not just be, if you're designing an app, just don't put the screens out there. Nobody wants to, look at just the final project. They want to see, the person who's recruiting you wants to see how you reached that project, right? How you reached those final screens. So tell a story for each of those projects. Choose three or four of your best work and tell a story for each. So why did you start it? How did it start? What was the research? Why you're using certain colors? Why you're using, such kind of typography? And then show the design. So yeah, the main strategy I would say is tell a story. Okay, if someone wants to go abroad for MDes in interior interface design, is it worth, and what's the scope in other countries? So Aparna, it totally depends on what your end goal is. So if you want to settle down abroad, yes, it's the best way to do that. Go for a master's in in other countries, and then you can work for their countries itself. Is it worth it? It depends. So I would say, okay, I'll tell you my own experience. So I have done bachelor's in designing. So I've spent 4 years in a design school. And what I learned from my experience, I did it from, top 10 India's product design universities. So I did BDES in product design. Out of my experience, I can tell you that even the top 10 universities, the professors will not spoon feed you everything. They will expect you to do your own research, learn from your friends, collaborate, and then bring up the project. So they will not tell you, okay, how this should look, how this should not look. The process is going to be yours. So if you are going for MDes in the scope, in the thought that they will teach you everything, then that will not happen. You will have to put in a lot of efforts from your side as well. But yes, a design school really helps because you get to network a lot. You meet a lot of different kinds of people, and go for an MDes, Aparna, only if you have, some sort of experiences in design. If you don't have that, I would recommend take up an internship, learn the software, and then go for masters. Okay, is there good scope in UI/UX on campus placements in IITS? I'm not very sure about that. So that is something I can't comment on right now. Okay, so Neomorphis was talked about quite a bit in 2020. However, apps and websites haven't adopted it. Some designers say it's being a low contrast style won't be functional to a bigger demographic. What is your take on it? I totally agree to it. So Cred is an app which uses this process, and a lot of apps on websites are not using them because a lot of users are not used to it. So it's basically, for people who don't know what it is, it's basically adding a rubber feel to your whole platform. It's a design trend and not everybody uses that. So if you use this process in an education app, for example, students might get confused, right? It's not the best take for it. So you need to see what the scope of your end project is, who you're actually designing for. If you use this kind of project, for people above the age of 60 who are not very tech savvy, it might not be a good example, good way to show that. People might drop off from your platform that way. So yes. Do we have more questions? Okay, awesome. Perfect. So yes, that was all from my end. And I hope you guys learned something new and enjoyed, spending this 1 hour over here on a Sunday evening. So yes, thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Mfl, for bringing me in on the platform. I had a blast, interacting with everybody here.
Thank you so much, Akshita. It was really an interactive and mind blowing session, and we really enjoyed everything. You just explained everything in a very easy way, and I hope all our students also get that whatever you was delivering. Thank you. It was really an interactive session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I want you all to please fill the feedback form. It's in the chat. The link of the feedback form is in the chat box. Please do fill. We are looking forward to host more sessions with you, Akshita. Yeah, definitely. Guys, please do fill the feedback form. If any more questions, Akshita, as we can see that, there are no more questions, so we can
Okay,
wrap up
okay.
the session. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So that was all from my end, guys. Have a great week ahead and all the best for your future design journey.
Thank you so much, Akshita.